Welcome to Intelligent Think, the podcast in which we explore what makes ideas great, how to make our thinking better, and why it's so important to share your ideas with the world. Plus, we'll talk to thought leaders and authors about their own ideas and experiences so you can mine them for gold nuggets that will help you on your own journey. I'm Christina, and this is Intelligent Think. Now, today I'm joined by the fabulous Emily Walker, and it won't take long for any of you to hear and understand exactly why I'm so excited to have this conversation. Emily helps thought leaders, best-selling authors, and personal brands turn their genius into scalable, high-impact bodies of work. So she is the force behind industry-leading programs and certifications. She specializes in sustainable offer ecosystems, proprietary frameworks, and facilitation mastery. What I loved about Emily in her bio is she says that her expertise can be best described as a bit like if Marie Kondo and Van Gogh had a love child, which I think is just beautiful. It's the perfect blend of strategic structure and wild creativity. She dares to see things in a way others don't. So Emily's genius, I think a bit like ours, which is why we've clicked, lies in pulling all the tangled threads out of people's brains, distilling and weaving them together to help you craft a scalable body of IP that's unlike anything anyone's ever seen. So yay, welcome Emily. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for our chat today.
We've had some conversations prior to this, so let me kind of catch people up with some of the stuff that we've talked about. You talk a lot in your work about a body of work that feels good for you yourself as the person delivering and also the people that you're here to serve. Help I guess the people listening understand what it is that we're actually talking about when you talk about body of work.
Yes, absolutely. So very much when I think about having a body of work, to me, it transcends the individual offers. It's so much more than just like, oh, I've got like a course or I write some content or like, in case of, I'm sure so many people listening, like I have a book. Your body of work is to me like all the different ways that you share kind of your message, your expression, like the impact that you're meant to have on the world in a way that's really nourishing for you and for the people that you serve. Because I think there's a lot of noise out there about like, we either need to make it absolutely all about, your people, like, and to the point that we can get a bit self-sacrificing with it, we can kind of lose sight of what lights us up and what brings us joy and what we're meant to do. Or we can swing all the way to the other side where we make it all about ourselves. We completely lose track of who we're here to serve to the point that our message can become so like we understand it, but our people don't, that it's not having the impact we want to have. And in the case of anyone who's running a business, we're not making the sales that we want to make. And so really, when we think about having this body of work that allows you to feel so held, it's when you're able to weave those two elements together about what do you need so that you feel held and nourished, and what do your people need so that they are really experiencing the transformation that you're so passionate about delivering.
I love that. I talk a lot about the finding the authentic way to show up in your thought leadership too. And I think a huge part of that and that mixture of you need to have something that gives you energy is actually the sustainability, because thought leadership and impact in the world, that's a really slow burn project. That's a long time. You have to keep showing up and doing the work and being the thing and whatever over a really long period for a true impact and kind of transformation for people to happen. So it's incredibly hard to do that if you've kind of, carved off this piece of yourself and just left that over there, or if you're not serving what you need as well. But I guess the challenge that I think lots of the people that we talk to actually have is that balance of purpose with still being commercial. So there are no shortage in our community of really passionately purpose-driven people, but they also, they can't be out there. They're not out there as not-for-profits, they need to feed their families and they need to keep their lights on and they need to, it's not selfish, that's just a reality of being able to continue to do the work. So how do you sort of help people navigate that balance between business and purpose, something that's both aligned to you and commercially smart?
Yeah. Oh, I love this question. And there's so many threads that kind of weave together in this question. So I just want to like pick out a couple of them, even though I could like
Take us
camp on this for a
wherever.
long
Take
time.
us wherever.
Like,
We're yours.
you know, so I think the first thing that I want to say, because I see this so often, because all of my clients, people in my world are so purpose driven. Like there's so much, they're like, I would do what I do for free, but like, again, I like groceries and being able to eat and pay my rent. And we're, you know, so passionate about like the impact that we want to make, the transformation we want to have, that like there's something where we almost try to be like, it's not about the money, like it's not about the money, it's fine. We like almost like we kind of like play a little bit coy with it. And it's like, it is about the money. We're a business. And it's okay to own that.
The money, right?
Like at the end of the day, it does. And I think this is like where there's a shift of we see so much like critiques happening about like the wealth hoarding and like the like unethical billionaires and like all of like the weird shit that's going on kind of in this like capitalistic society that we live in, that we then apply those critiques to us as small businesses to the point that we feel like we should just like race to the bottom of like how little can we charge and then feel guilty for charging, instead of realizing like I am such a firm believer that you need to be like very, very, very well compensated for the work that you do, and that, you know, more money in the hands of good people is what's going to change the world. Because like, I would love it if we could like not live in a capitalistic society, but the reality is that we do. And so the answer is not for the good people of the world to not be making money. It's every time I've like, again and again, I see that when like the people who are purpose driven and passionate about what they do, and when they are so sustained and they're not like living paycheck to paycheck and they're in this state of overflow, they thrive, their families thrive, their communities thrive, you know, the world thrives. Like we see this ripple effect of what is made possible by that. So I think like that's like the first piece, like before I even get into like the strategies of the intersection of it all, is that like really reminding yourself that like it's not a bad thing to want to make money. Because I think that can happen often where people are like, oh, it shouldn't be about the money. It is about the money, and that's okay.
And I think too, sometimes when you're working in your absolute zone of genius, we see this a bit too, you've got this intuitive sort of knowing, and you know, the thing when you're really in your strengths doesn't feel that hard. And I think we've sometimes equated hard work as, you know, noble and valuable and worthwhile, and we should be sweating and straining and pushing, and that's what we deserve to be compensated for. Whereas when we're actually like, this is freaking fun, I think there's sometimes a little bit of guilt in being compensated well for that. But even beyond that, there's sort of when something becomes so natural and I guess core to what we're able to do, we forget that it's special, or you know, like surely anyone can do this, right? Because it's so second nature and instinctive for us. We forget, I think, that not everyone can do that, and therefore people will pay to, you know, plug that skill in and round out what they're doing. So I think there's that sort of expertise curse, or sort of blind spot to how special what it is we're able to do actually is. And then but it doesn't feel hard. Like, should I be paid to have fun? We've sort of got these twisted ideas about work and stuff that don't necessarily support that too, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head, because I think there is, like you said, when it's so intuitive and it's so natural, it's so second nature to us, we forget that it is like absolutely mind blowing to other people. You're like, oh wait, like other people think differently and are different and like don't have the same skill set, and like that's so beautiful. So then we can, like you said, that we can forget that we're like, oh, this is life changing for someone else. Like other people like can't necessarily do this for themselves, and it's going to have these like this massive impact. And then when you layer that with like, okay, well, not only is this second nature to me, but this is really fun. And it's like, oh, like the guilt comes in and you're like, oh, I don't know about this. Like I remember feeling that same way the first time I led the retreat that I lead every 2 years in France. And I was like sitting in this villa facilitating, like, you know, and I had just served my guests like champagne, and like my husband was doing all the like the private chefing, and I was just like, I can you pay for this? Like, I shouldn't be charging for this. I shouldn't be getting paid for this. Like, this is too much fun. And by the end of the weekend, I had people telling me that they're like, you need to triple the price on this. Like, this was so transformational. Like, there's no way I could have gotten where I got without this experience, without all the things. And I think that's sometimes when we when we start to lose our way a little bit, to be like, oh, like it can't be fun, or it shouldn't be fun, or like it's too easy, I shouldn't be charging for this. It's like, oh, actually, when we're in our joy, like when we are lit up by our work, that's actually when we have the most impact. Because like, who wants to be coached, or who wants to learn from someone who's like, yeah, like this is how I think, but like, whatever, I'm so tired. Wait, no, I don't feel that. No, not at all.
So what was the other aspect? You I know I blew you off course a little bit there, because you were like, oh, there's some threads I want to bring to that question of the balance of purpose and commercial, I guess, success. One of them was the fact that we don't think that we necessarily should be wanting to make money. What was some of the other, you know, if we get more to the strategic side, some of the other aspects?
Yeah, absolutely. So if that's kind of like the far side of like, you know, when people are like, oh, I shouldn't be charging money, I would say if we swing the pendulum all the way over to the other side, and I'll get to the middle after this. Okay. The other side is when it's like, I should be charging money, and we almost start to like overly manufacture it. And this is where I see people kind of going down the rabbit holes of like over consuming the information about the marketing. So it's like, they're like, you know, binging through all of the, like, this is how you make a reel, this is how you make a LinkedIn thing. They get so focused on the marketing, or they get so focused on all those like bro and boss babe marketers that are like, this is the one way to succeed. And so then they start cramming themselves into someone else's template, and they get so focused on the commercial side of things that they actually lose sight of all of that magic that we just talked about. And so then they start to feel like, oh, in order to be successful, in order for people to buy this, if this is what people need, like this is what people want, then I have to do things a certain way. And so, for instance, an example of that I saw is often when I have clients come to me and they're like, I need to find a way to connect the work I do to a monetary win, because we see this so often, especially in like the business coaching space, of like the people with the huge followings that are like, I'll help you make 7 figures. I'll help you make $100,000 in 10 seconds. Like, you know, it's like all these like really like the only results they have are like the financial ones. And it's like, again, money is important. We like money. And so people can fall into this trap of like, I have to somehow design an offer that's all about helping people make money. But then when we get beneath the surface, it's like, yeah, you help them make money, but is that really what your people care about? Is that really what you care about? And I can use myself as an example of this, like, especially when I was purely focused on offer design and I hadn't quite expanded out into the body of work and frameworks. I never talked about how much money my clients made from their courses, even though I was having clients who were having, you know, 50, 100, 250K launches. They didn't come to me for that. They came to me because they were like, I want my course to make an impact. I want this to be the best experience someone had ever had. And I definitely I waffled with it. I was like, oh my gosh, like all the big names out there who are teaching course creation, they're talking about how much money you'll make with this course and how you can just like sit back and sip margaritas on a beach and make all this money. And I was like, do I need to be, you know, structuring my offers to talk about that? Do I need to be shifting my content to talk about that? And it was when I really anchored into it, I was like, that's not who I am. And that's also not who my people are. Really, the people that I want to be serving, that's not what they're looking for. That's really when I started to see the massive growth in my business.
I feel like we've felt that way about books too. There are all sorts of programs where, you know, they're going to show you how you can hack the bestseller list or get that, you know, Amazon top whatever category little badge, or it's all about the launch week sales. And that's not our approach either. We want, you know, this book out in the world that you feel immensely proud of. And we talk about them being transformational books because you will be transformed in the process of writing it. But then for someone to read it, because you have so thought about the journey you want to take a reader on and put so much of yourself and your heart and your, you know, your magic into it that they won't be able to not, you know, help but be transformed if they read it and engage too. So that's not a, you know, and that's not reflected in, it's not as alluring as, you know, you're going to make X amount of money. You know, we tell people, we're like, you're probably not going to make anywhere near enough money in book sales. That's not how you're going to do it. You're going to do it through, you know, these other leverage things, but your impact. So we lean way more on the, in the midst of lots of shouty people talking about those things. I love how you called it bro and boss band culture as a sculptor. I'm like, yes, that's a thing. But in the midst of all that noise, we're trying to show these little stories of true impact. Like, I have to share one with you very quickly. And I know I keep taking us down rabbit holes, but we wrote a book, helped to write a book. It came out in March last year. So, you know, a couple of years ago, obviously, we were working on it. And it's called Work School Hours. And it's about a new approach to work and how organizations can help support working parents, but actually working everybody, because we've all got other things in our lives, whether they're children or parents we're caring for, or sports we're training for, or a theatre show we're rehearsing for. Like, we've got life, right? How they can make that more supportive through flexible working and focusing on the right things, basically. And there are some quite practical elements wrapped into that. And our client got this email. She's amazing in that she forwards us all these little, like, lovely glimmers that she gets even more than a year later. And I think that's part of the point, isn't it, of this true transformational impact something, is that the tail on that is long. But she sent us this email where someone had reached out to her to say that they just got a 15% pay or 30% pay rise, some ridiculous, like more than they had hoped for, because they'd used these conversational tools that were in the book, and managed to keep their 4-day work week, but be paid as though they were doing a full-time position, and then more, because they could own and sort of talk about the value that they were contributing despite the sort of the time their bum was in the seat. Yeah, and so to me, I was like, oh my, gave me goosebumps. And it was like, when we're talking about true impact and really what you want your book to do, it's those little gems, not, you know, she wouldn't even know if the launch had made her lots of money, you know, enough money by now. It was a year ago, 18 months ago. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love those types of stories. And I think that like brings me to, you know, this kind of middle part. Like, if we think about, you know, that pendulum of, you know, one side is being like so in the magic, but feeling guilty for charging it. And the other side is being so focused on the money, you forget the magic. And really the middle part of it is knowing that when you are being your most authentic, fully expressed self, where you are like, I am delivering things in a way that brings me joy. I am talking about things that bring me joy. I am sharing those like raw, unhinged, spicy opinions that there's no way that AI and ChatGPT could replicate, because that's another a huge, huge factor that's happening here too. It's like we're desperate for that like human experience that allows others to feel so seen and so heard in the way that we share and do our work and exist. And all of that combined with really deeply understanding your people, like on a soul level, because like ultimately, like making a sale, having a successful business, what it comes down to is like, are you solving a need for someone? Like, that's where people are like, here, take my money. Yes. And getting to the core of like, what is that need? And I think the reason why we see those people that have that like huge overnight success when they're offering kind of like, I usually call it like the kind of like the holy trinity of marketing, which is if you're in like sex, health, or wealth, like if you can tie things to one of those three, you're more likely to make those quick sales. But I think what we see is it's like those kind of like weight loss programs that are like, you're going to lose 5,000 pounds in like 30 days. And then, you know, people do them, they're miserable the whole time. And then 2 months later, they've gained the weight back and then some. Mm. It's not sustainable, and it's not like nourishing on a soul level, but there is a lot of that noise out there. So what we need to do is really find a way to connect with our people and get really clear on like, what are their needs and what kind of gaps or re-education or like unlearning needs to happen. We're like, hey, I know like at the core, what you want to have is, you know, for your people, like you want to have this book that's making like the most unbelievable like impact out there in the world. And we also know like ideally you'd love to get paid to write all day. So like, you know, and it's like having a touch of that reality if you're like, okay, how much money actually is there out there for your book sales? Or do we need to bring this into a body of work that really, you know, whether it's through courses or toolkits or masterminds or retreats or whatever it is, licensing
is often one of the other aspects for our authors.
Yeah. And I always say there's 5,000 ways to build a body of work. There's not one right way. And I think that's what a lot of people get lost in is they're like, oh, if I have a book, then I need to have some cute PDF downloads. And then I need to like sell people into a membership book club. And then maybe I'll do like some TED Talk kind of style things. And like, that's what my business model has to be. And for some people, that's a great business model. And for other people, it's not. And, you know, I'm looking over this week because I have like a shelf of all my clients who have written books, and I'm just like thinking through like the different ecosystems they have. And very much, I think when it comes to having that balance of like your magic and your intuition and like your soul's purpose and like why you're here and like the opinions you're meant to share, and also making money off of it, I think it is how we bridge that gap of like not feeling like you have to dilute or tamper down or pretty package up like those like really like bold thought leadership opinions that you have.
Yes.
And also making sure they are still connected and still speaking to a very precise person at a precise moment in their journey.
I talk quite a lot about my book in particular was for the reluctant thought leader. So they are the people who move through the world in a different way from our maybe dominant archetype of what thought leadership is. And I refer to those people as the sage on the stage. And so the sort of, I guess the main point that I was trying to get across there was if we can redefine thought leadership as simply a vehicle, it's not a formula, it's not a tick box checklist, it's not a you must do these things, even though it can look that way. If we redefine as actually it's just a vehicle for impact, it's a way to make it's a priority that you're placing on making your ideas and your expertise available and accessible for people, then it opens up a whole lot more ways that you can do that. And I think that's had resonance with a lot of people that we talk to. And I think, you know, it's what spurred me to write it was I was finding too many people were put off by, well, I've got to do this and I've got to do the TED Talk and I've got to do, but what if I don't want to do the TED Talk? Like, what if I don't feel comfortable showing up in that way, and that's not my most authentic, is pushing beyond your comfort zone. And then there's also just stretching so far that that's not really you, nor is it sustainable. So helping people find that's my happy place, I think, is helping people find their way and help them prove to themselves that that's successful too, and that can work, because the more examples of those people we can see, the more we'll sort of dismantle that there's one way and here's the way of the maybe I'll start calling them the bro thought leaders. But we all know who we're doing, you know, the kind of type that we're talking about there. Another question, Emily, is where is the mix, or what would you say the weighting is between the value being in how much is it sort of about the design of an offer or your offerings to the world? How much is it about the design of what's gone into that? And then how much is it about the marketing what you have well, because that's almost to me like the internal considerations of what you're building, and then the external communication of that. What's the sort of balance, or what have you seen in that case?
So I think when we think about the balance, you can look at it on like a couple different playing fields. Like there's the balance of like time and energy there's the balance of like what gets prioritized. There's the balance of like, where do you start? And, I know a lot of people are like, they're all on the pre-sale bandwagon of just like name your offer and throw it out there and wait till people pay you and then figure out the rest later.
Yes, build it and build it once you've sold it, that sort of idea.
Yeah. And there is a way to ethically pre-sale, and like, there's a lot of different steps in there that I could talk about later. But like for me, what I have noticed with my clients, especially when you are someone who feels really deeply, cares really deeply, and, is like a deep thinker. I don't want to say overthinker. I want to say like a deep thinker, where like you really consider all the different possibilities. Really spending the time to properly design the offer is so key. And I think what a lot of people do is they go like pre-sale with just like a name and an idea. And then if they make money, then they design, and then they build, and then they deliver. But really it should be design. If you want to pre-sell, you don't have to, and then build and deliver. Like the design and the blueprint and the architecture of the program, of the offer, should be designed first. Because what I find is when you're doing that properly, and I'm not just saying like sit down for 2 hours with some Post-it notes and be like, yay, offer, like really thinking through it, through all the skills you're developing, the journey you're bringing people on, the actions that they're taking, all of those things, because it's not about the content, it's not about the information, it's about the actions that people are taking. That's where the transformation comes from. And by doing that, there is such a level of precision and clarity that emerges, and also like confidence and excitement. And what I see happening is all the marketing stuff gets like so much easier, because what ends up happening is you're really clear. You're like, this is who this is for. This is where you are in your journey. This is exactly where I'm taking you to. I can tell you the way that I'm taking you there. I can give you all the building blocks of how we get there. And there's like this excitement, and also this kind of like obsession where you're like, I'm freaking obsessed with this offer. Like, why would someone not come into this?
And people feel and sense that energy, don't they? There's an authenticity and a vibe when you have someone that's genuinely marketing something that they're fired up about, as opposed to, oh, this is just my next thing and I'm wheeling it out. I'm ticking the box. Oh, yep, done LinkedIn posts. Yep. Oh, shit, I'll show up on a webinar. And they're going through the motions of it, though. I think we can sense that. Even more now amidst all the AI slop.
It's so true. It's so true. And I also find like what happens is there's this shift from how am I going to market this and what am I going to say to, oh my gosh, I almost have too much to say. Like I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about this. And all this stuff starts coming up. And so having that really clearly architected design of things, like I often compare it to like how people pre-sell, like how developers pre-sell condos. Is they'll give you this beautiful brochure and they'll go, this is what the building's going to look like. This is what your floor plan's going to look like. Here are your 2 options for like kitchen cabinets. Like they're not just going, oh, here's a plot of land and there's going to be something for you to live on, like live in here. They have the whole vision. And so they're allowed to literally paint for you. Like imagine sitting on your couch facing this fireplace while you like overlook your balcony. Like they're allowed to get really specific. And that's what sells people into being like, okay, great, I'm in, even if I'm not going to be able to move into this condo for like 2 to 5 years.
Yeah, versus you've got some emotional buy-in, I think, in what you're describing. If I can picture myself on that couch with that fireplace or with that view or whatever, I'm buying in, like at an emotional level.
Exactly.
It's not just this doing the work anymore. It's in here.
Yeah. Which I think is like that's the place that people buy from. There's some level of emotion that's driving them. And so then when we get to the marketing, like the marketing has to happen. I'm not saying it doesn't. Like at the end of the day, like people need to know that your offer exists, and you have to like bang that drum way louder and way more often than most people think. And obviously
most people want to.
And that most people want to, absolutely. And there's obviously a lot of strategy that goes into the marketing. It so much depends on your audience and your offer and your niche and all these things. But I do find that when you've taken the time to design the offer and you're so clear and you're so excited about it, then it gives you a little bit more breathing room because you can be a little bit messy. You can just like show up, whether it's on video or you're writing, and just be like, holy shit, I designed this thing. It's so cool. Like, and then you can actually like explain what it is. And then of course, you know, you need to spend the time of like writing the posts, writing the videos. If you're doing a launch event, if you're sharing it, you know, all sorts of different levers.
Sending emails, all that jazz.
All the things. So like it takes time, it takes effort, and it often is that transition point from like the design and building into the marketing that most people like really lose momentum, and they're like, I'm so tired. And that's totally normal.
That's the same, Emily, in the book process. People feel like they've climbed this mountain to get their book done, and then we turn around and tell them that they've got to, you know, launch it, get it out there, market the damn thing. And that's when the analogy switches from this is not a marathon, which, you know, they think that their book writing is. This is actually kind of like a triathlon. So once you've finished the run, you're going to jump on your bike or swim. I don't actually know which one's first. I need to figure that out for the...
Yeah, I think it's swimming.
I think it is swim, because then I think they often jump on their bikes dripping wet and like tired. And that's probably, you know, the launch to that we really start getting leverage from it is that transition. But, you know, you're got to dive into the water and bloom start paddling. So, and they're just like, oh no, but I've just run, you know, all this way. So yeah, I think that there's a parallel there in being able to maintain that push.
Yeah, absolutely. Push. Yeah, I think push is a great way of putting it. And I think that's why, like, as I'm sure you've experienced with your authors, I've had so many of my clients be like, it is like, it's birthing in its own way. It's like you've got like this 9 month of like literally like growing this thing inside of you. And then you're like, okay, great. Now I actually have to deliver it. And then I have to deliver the placenta. And it's like this whole thing, just when you think you're done, wait, no, there's more. And so I think it's often the part
you got to figure out how to keep the damn little thing alive.
Yeah.
Don't get that part.
Yeah. It's like, why is its head so destructible? You know, so I think there is this, you know, this metaphor there, but I think often when we have these dominant narratives that just make it sound so easy, like, oh yeah, you just set it and forget it. You just build a funnel, you just run ads, then we can feel like we're doing something wrong. We can feel like, why is this so hard? Why is this taking so long? But it's, you know, I have so many clients be like, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. It's taking so long. Like I thought I would get this done in a month and it's taking me like 6 months to do the whole thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's like how long it takes. Like sometimes, especially when you're putting so much care and devotion in, it does take time, but that's what builds it to be like sustainable and have really strong foundations, opposed to whipping together something in a weekend and then having to hire someone like me in 2 years to come in and fix it because it wasn't designed properly in the first place.
We feel like that's one of our anti-sales messages, that like your book is going to take you a really freaking long time. And newsflash, it's probably going to take you even longer than you think. Like pick a long time and then add some more to it. And that's probably closer. I sometimes say to people, you know, virtually nobody, even in one of our programs, releases their book on like the first date that they've picked. Like the first deadline they've given themselves comes and goes. And you know, there's one or two or three further down the track that's the one we hit. And it sounds like, oh God, like why would I want to do that? It's so counter the write your book in 90 days or 30 days or whatever messaging out there, but you're going to get something so much better. And we know that the really important ones take that long, but it's a funny, and we know that we attract the people who want to do the really important, like I said, kind of transformational ones. Watching them and helping them have that realization is tricky. We have clients that come to us from a one-on-one kind of coaching engagement, and so they're committed to writing their book and they want us to support them through that. And they think, yeah, we're just going to need, 3 months, 4 months. And I'm like, okay, cool. Sure. Like, we might. Let's go. Let's start. And then, 100% of the time, they get in and they're like, man, this is taking so much longer. Either we're going to need way longer, or most of the time, can you help me write this so that we can get it done? And, it's still even a mixture of it's going to take longer than they originally hoped, and they're going to do less of it than they thought. But we've seen so many, well, it looks like people can do it really fast. So I'll be able to do that too. I know what I'm writing about. Last thing I want to ask you about, because I know that there's resonance here between the people you work with and the people that we work with, which are largely the sort of network of listeners, I'm assuming, that we have. What are some of the key considerations when you want something to be truly transformational? So if they are going to put aside some of the, I've been told what I need to do, and this is the package of bits, and like, just put that down. And we know that they really want impact and they really want to transform. You mentioned before that it's less about the content and what you're telling them, more about what you're helping them to do. What are a couple of the other little nuggets like that could help, I guess, reassure people that they're on the right track, even if this is taking longer, or it maybe doesn't look like what everybody else is putting out there, or telling them is the shape of what things need to be? What are some of the ways you know that you're on that transformational path?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, the one that I already mentioned, I'm going to say it again because it is truly the most important. And it's something that I just want to scream from every mountaintop, is that transformation doesn't come from information. Transformation comes from implementation. And I think especially when we are in this thought leadership role, and we are used to sharing our thoughts and used to sharing content, we often hear it's an info product. It's, what content can you share? So then when we sit down to create these transformational offers, experiences, whether it's a self-study course, whether it's a group program, a mastermind, a retreat, a talk, the principles are the same. I literally even use these principles when I was designing my wedding. It's when you're thinking about a transformational, deeply impactful experience, it's not about the content. We want to think about what our people are doing and how they're feeling. And that is where we really want to start. And so, regardless of the offer that you're designing, I always recommend starting with getting very, very clear on who the person is. And this doesn't mean demographics. I don't really care about what gender your person identifies with, unless you are, you're in a niche where that actually applies. I don't care if they're a 42-year-old mom who coaches soccer in her spare time. I want to hear, are your people prone to perfectionism, so they get absolutely paralyzed before they take action? I want to hear about, are your people slow processors, so they need lots of expansion and lots of time to sit with something? Are your people really actually pressed for time, where they need to be able to have stuff taken off their plate as much as possible? Deeply understanding who your people are and where they are in their journey. Because I think often when we're designing these offers, we end up with a very vague sense of who our person is. So then we're trying to accommodate for well, they might have this skill, but they might not. And they might have this in place, but they might not. They might have this. And it's there's a huge difference of, let's say, for instance, you are a copywriter and you specialize in sales pages. There's a huge difference in designing an offer on how to write a sales page for someone who is a layman, who has no idea about copywriting skills, and who just wants a template that they can plug their stuff into, versus you want to coach them how to write for themselves. So they don't need a template, they need skills, versus they are an experienced copywriter and they're looking to up-level their skills.
Well, they might don't write sales copy, but they write copy. So therefore, it's actually the sales lens that they're trying to put over skills that they already have.
Yes, exactly. And so on a content level, you could argue the content is going to be the same. I'm saying, I have air quotes happening, because you're oh, well, they need to understand the psychology of why people buy, and what flows go through, and what words captivate people. But the actual skills you're teaching are very different. The actual person you're supporting is very different. The mindset blocks, or the things that are kind of prevent them from moving along that learning journey, are going to be very different. So we need to be really clear on who our person is, what they're looking for, what we are supporting them with, and then what actions and skills they need to develop. And from there, then we get to layer on the experience. And you know, in self-study courses or like smaller offers, the experience is more around like smooth tech and nice design and beautiful things like that. When we start to bring into live offers, you know, group programs, masterminds, in-person events, retreats, that's where a lot more care needs to be given to the facilitation, to, you know, if it's an in-person thing, everything from like what's on the table, what's the environment, what are you feeding people, all of these things to support a nervous system feeling safe to transform. And I think often we get so focused on like, oh my gosh, I need to like fire hose my people with stuff. Like that's where the value comes from. But like ultimately our goal is to really create this like deeply supportive environment where, you know, when we work with people one-to-one, we're the ones guiding them through transformation. But when we move into a scalable offer, they're guiding themselves. And so our job is very much to go, how can I support you and give you the scaffolding, the skills, the tools, the resources so that you can lead yourself on this journey?
Yes, we thought so many of those things when we have tried to design different offers and programs over the years. And I think one of our more enduring ones, the Better Book Project, the way we talk about it now versus the way we talked about it to sell it the very first time. Now I say to people almost as an afterthought, or, oh yeah, you know, there's a bit of pre-recorded material. And I brush that aside because I know now and have seen that's not where the value is. For all the people that have done it, it's the space on the calls to, so now I can confidently say, I don't hold those things with the same weighting and in my sales calls or my sales messaging or anything like that, because I can hand on heart from experience say, you know, there's some this, like that's fine, that's there if you need it and want it. But actually what you will love in this is the calls where you get to show up, you get to be with other people who are doing this journey, you get to be with one or two of our amazing coaches who just know exactly when to push, when to back off, when to support, when to prod, when to kick your ass, all those. And you know, not that I've ever taught them how to do that, they just are these amazing humans that know that, because I've watched them do it over and over and over and over now, just right. You know, that's the sort of conviction I can have now that I couldn't have when I started talking about this, or when we first built it, I guess. And I think the other thing that stood out there, which I think people will identify with too, is that we think our people are just one group of people, and then we've noticed as we've gone along, we think we've got one type of people, one type of person, and they can either afford to have us ghostwrite their book, or they can't, and they've either got the money to ghostwrite or they've got the time to self-write. It's not that they don't have the money to ghostwrite, but they've got the time and the inclination to write, whereas often the people who get us to ghostwrite, they don't. They're more time poor, but better resourced, I guess, financially. They're not the same person, like at all. And it has taken us ages to be like, that is not just one or two variables, but the rest of their psychographics are the same. When you started talking about the way that they think and all of the people who are in the roles that, you know, our ghostwriting typically are more, they are founders or owners or CEOs or people who have built and exited businesses of some size and scale often. So they're not used to doing all the do anymore. They're used to leveraging other people's skills and expertise to do the stuff. It's a totally different person. It's taken us an embarrassingly long time, Emily, to realize how very different they are. They are not just richer versions of these people, or busier versions of these people. They are
Mhm.
completely different people.
Completely different.
Bit of
Yeah.
a project people. And, only recently have we probably realized and started treating them as such.
Mhm.
We could identify who should go where, but I think we were still talking to them as though they were the same person with this tiny tweak that was different. So that's huge. And I think that'll be huge for people that are listening. I can imagine that lots of people are going to think, oh my goodness, like that sparked heaps for me. How do I get more Emily? Are there places that they can either learn a bit more from you, reach out to you? Where would you like to drive people to if this has sparked anything for them?
Yes, absolutely. So the main place I hang out is over on Instagram, and my DMs are always open. So if you're like, hey, I listened to this episode, I have follow-up questions, or I have thoughts or anything, you're always welcome to message me. And I know you'll link my Instagram below, but for people who are listening, it's at emily.mwalker. That's the main place I hang out. And I would say, based on what we've talked about today, if it's something that people want to deepen and they want to learn a bit more about, like, how do I build this body of work that really holds my people and holds me, I do have a free masterclass that literally walks through the exact layers that I support my clients through, and kind of the ways that the industry talks about it that like are a little bit like not quite right, and the issues that those can cause down the road, and then the proper skills and the proper ways to do it at each level, from you and facilitation and your frameworks and IP all the way through to like offer ecosystems and offers. And that link will be in the show notes.
Yes, I will put all of that down below. Is there anything else that you want to say, impart, plant a seed about before we sign off?
I think we've really touched on so many things. So I just am so grateful for this conversation, and for everyone who's been listening. It's just like, it's been such a magical time. Thank you, Emily.
And with that, you've been listening to Intelligent Think with Verity Craft and Christina Wedgwood, brought to you by Intelligent Think. A huge thanks to you, Emily, to Jeff Ong for our theme music, and to all of you for listening. Here's to better thinking together.